Morning, everyone. This is my watch list for Monday, April 13th. All right, so what's going on today? New week, and we are gapping down today. SPY is down 0.58% over the weekend. It appears that we are pausing the ceasefire, and there's some tension escalating again in the Middle East. All right, so market's gapping down off of that news. And we are gapping back below demand from Friday, demand from Thursday, and you can see this hourly pivot as well from April 8th. So what I would like to see today is pops into this previous session low, 678.50, 678.50, 678, that area right there between 678 and 678.50 for shorts. Pops into there for shorts, and we can look for shorts all the way back into the Wednesday session low at 671.50. If we don't get the pop off the open, we could potentially look for breakdowns below the pre-market low, right below 674 into that 671.50. But I eventually do think that we will retest this area back here, this 666 level on SPY. Whether that comes today, I don't know. Maybe sometime this week. But I like shorts today if we pop into this and fade, or if we get under the pre-market low, we can look for shorts into 671.50. All right. But with the gap down, I'm primarily focused on shorts unless we start reclaiming. If we reclaim the previous session low, 678.50, then we can look for longs again. But SPY failed my big supply on Friday. I had 682, 683, and we failed that, and now we're gapping down. So it looks like the shorts are going to work. We're in put swings right now, and we should be making some decent money off the open from those. Okay, QQQ. All right, QQQ, I took this trade like 3 times on Friday. The 613 reject, it failed so many times, 613. So Qs also failed supply on Friday, and the Qs are gapping down as well. Qs are gapping down 0.6%. We're gapping underneath the session low from Friday. Also big pivot back here from last Wednesday. Session highs from Thursday, right? So 610. I want to look for pops and failures of 610 for shorts on the Qs. If we reclaim 610, it has the potential to go back to 613. But again, now we're we're gapping under this area. Everything above is now supply, right? 610 is now supply, 613 is now supply, and we can look for shorts into either one of those, all right? And then same thing here, we could potentially look for shorts. Like if we don't get the pop and fade off the open, we could look for shorts below the pre-market low, right? 605, whatever, 605.50, into the session low from Wednesday, 602. Then if we break 602, I have nothing on this to 596, right? Which was this area from back here, this high, this hourly high there. So, if we break 602, we go to 596, where I will actually look for bounces at that point, because that's a big demand that we have yet to test, all right? But as long as we stay below 610, I see this chart going into 602, all right? And let's look at some individuals. Apple, I still like this for longs if we get over 262. It was a nice little move. I talked about getting an early entry over 260 on Friday. It made a nice $2 move, 260 to 262. But I think the big move happens if we break and reclaim 262. 262, that's where we failed Friday. It's where we failed here last Monday. It's where we failed back here, right? We get over 262. This chart's going to go into the 265, 266 area, okay? AMD is just so overextended at this point. If you look at the daily, right? There's just so many big green candles in a row. We bounced from 192 all the way to 250. I'm not really watching anything on this name. You could look for pullback longs, but I would not be taking breakouts at this point, right? Potential pullback long areas, the gap fill level, right? 235, or that high from, this area back here from last Wednesday. I'll zoom into the hourly so you can see. Right, this was the failed high here on Monday, and then we held that level on Wednesday. So it's either 235 or 226 for potential bounce areas on AMD. All right. Amazon, I'm still watching the same bounce level, 226. We have yet to test it. This was the gap fill level, right? You go back here to look at the gap, and this is the start of the gap. So it's 226. We have yet to test it. That's kind of far away still. But if we do get to 226 at some point this week, I do like bounces on Amazon. Otherwise, I'm not really looking at breakouts. Kind of same chart as AMD, like it's been very, very strong. I would like to see a pullback to long it, okay? So Amazon watching 226 still. MetaMask stuff. Netflix is starting to break out, right? I think we're gonna go test that 200 SMA. I'll turn it on the chart. There you go. It's at 106.50, right? And right now we're at 103. I like the move. I caught a really nice piece of this on, I think it was Thursday. I caught a really nice piece of this over 100. Yeah, right here, Thursday. We got the 100 breakout all the way into 102. And this is a nice chart. It's strong, but where do you long? I mean, at this point, it's kind of tough, right? We have supply $3 ahead, and maybe like the 101 pullback could potentially get longs there, but this is not a main watch for me today. NVDA also bounced, but this chart looks a little bit different for me than the others. It looks a bit weaker here in the pre-market. It's down 1.5% already in the pre-market session. And I think it trapped a lot of people over this 185 on Friday. So if we now lose the 185, right, which was the big pivot from last Wednesday, also pre-market low here, I think this is going to turn into a heavier short on the session. So this is actually something I am watching. Does NVIDIA fail back below 185 for shorts? Okay. Last but not least, Palantir. This chart is up. Actually, it's up 2%. If you guys remember, Friday, Trump tweeted something about Palantir. He said something like, "Oh, Palantir is the best when it comes to weapons," something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he tweeted something positive about Palantir, and the stock ripped immediately when he said that. Right, you can see the 5-minute candle here, and it held my big area. I was watching for longs. 125 to 126. It failed it in the morning, but then once it reclaimed, it held it for the rest of the session. You can see it actually created a pivot Friday afternoon at 125.50. So I am interested in longs, as this name is gapping up. I am interested in longs if we pull back into that 126. We can look for longs there, all right, that 126 to 125. Let me just zoom out to the 4-hour and you see, all right, this is a huge base back here from Feb, right, Feb. It's just a massive level. Look at the daily, right? This was the big pivot from Feb of last year too, right? 125 was the high before it got slammed. So I like this, this pen bar on the daily. I like the reclaim. If we get back into 126 off the open, I don't know, quick sell into 126, we can look for longs. Potentially, this is forming a bit of a pivot here for upside. Okay. All right. So that's my watch list for today. It's Monday, so let's keep it chill. And we'll see what happens off the open. All right. Hope everyone has a good session. We can take some profit off the open from our swing. And I'll see you guys on live. Thanks for joining.